Hello, welcome to NeilScribe. I love the competitive nature of business, even though that means some businesses lose. But that is a necessary evil because competition brings out the best in companies and society receives a greater value as a result. So on a massive economic scale, it's okay for the free market to do some spring cleaning every now and then. Out with the old and in with the new. And I think that is what we're seeing in the aerospace industry. There is a changing of the guard led by SpaceX, and it appears that the legacy companies have given up the fight. And the legacy companies that I'm talking about are Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman. Remember the combiner robots and transformers that formed into one large badass robot? That is what these legacy companies are like. So much of the aerospace industry's heritage lies within these three companies. Take Boeing. The legendary and mighty Saturn V had three leading manufacturers: Boeing, Douglas Aircraft Company, and North American Aviation. And since the Apollo era, Boeing merged with the other two companies, so the legacy of the Saturn V is embedded with one mighty company in Boeing. Similarly, Lockheed Martin is the accumulation of a handful of aerospace companies, including the American Marietta Company, Glenn L. Martin Company, and the Lockheed Corporation. The Lockheed Corporation built the Apollo escape system, and then Lockheed Martin's most significant heritage came from the Glenn L. Martin Company, responsible for the historic Atlas rocket family with over 350 launches, including the historic Gemini missions. Then finally, Northrop Grumman is a massive collection of aerospace mergers. The Grumman Aerospace Corporation built the Apollo Lunar Module. Alliant Tech Systems Inc., or ATK, built the solid rocket boosters for the space shuttle. And Orbital Sciences Corporation has a vast array of launch vehicles of various sizes dating back to the 1980s. It's incredible how these three legacy companies embody American aerospace history. I am a nostalgic person, so it bothers me to see these legacy companies quit. It's almost embarrassing. They should be embarrassed. Because the future of space launch systems is reusability. Correction, it's not the future, it's already here. It's been 5 years since SpaceX landed the Falcon 9 for the first time, and none of the big three legacy companies have yet to start a booster landing program. Hell, McDonnell Douglas, which is now Boeing, built the DCX, a successful prototype of a reusable space launch vehicle. Boeing, all you have to do is pull the research from your archives and start your own program. What are you waiting for? But I cannot accurately single out Boeing like I just did because as far as launch systems go, Boeing and Lockheed Martin joined forces in this arena and jointly formed the seemingly unstoppable force, the United Launch Alliance, or ULA. The ULA is a space launch services provider backed by the heritage and expertise of two of America's three legacy aerospace companies. But regardless of how you slice it, it's evident by their actions that the legacy companies have given up. The ULA and Northrop Grumman had the perfect opportunity to start a vertical landing reusability program. In 2018, both companies were awarded hundreds of millions of dollars from the US Air Force to develop a launch system prototype as part of the National Security Space Launch Competition. What the ULA and especially Northrop Grumman developed from that money is embarrassing. The ULA developed the Vulcan rocket, which I give them a little credit because they plan to reuse the rocket engines, which accounts for 2/3 of the cost of the booster. But they are still playing it safe in my opinion. They are not even attempting to start a vertical landing program. What's more, ULA's CEO Tory Bruno was interviewed by Aviation Week back in April and said that the practice of reusing rocket boosters has not yet proven to save money. I mean, ULA is either in denial or they've just given up on the fight. And then Northrop Grumman is even worse. It gave up on the Omega rocket, their next generation launch vehicle that it received the funding for. You see, the US Space Force recently dropped them from being a launch provider. But for Northrop Grumman to cancel the development after receiving government funding is weak. What a waste. These legacy companies are too big and bogged down to compete with SpaceX and bolder, nimble startups. Space launch services is not the core business for the big three legacy companies, not by a long shot. You can go down the list. We all know Boeing makes commercial aircraft, they make military aircraft and drones, and they make missiles. Lockheed Martin makes missile defense systems, fighter jets, radar systems, sonar systems, and much more. And Northrop Grumman is equally diverse. It manufactures artillery and mortar systems, medium caliber weapon platforms, and much more. It reminds me of the famous 300 scene about professions. The big three are like the Arcadians with many professions. SpaceX, Blue Origin, and newer startups. On top of SpaceX, Blue Origin is developing the reusable New Glenn, and even though Blue Origin has yet to reach orbit, Jeff Bezos will never quit. First of all, he's too stubborn to stop, and second is simply because he hates Elon Musk's guts. Then there's a handful of promising startups that are already incredibly innovative. Rocket Lab already started a reusability program for its electron boosters. It's also utilizing 3D printing to cut down on production costs. And Relativity Space is heavily utilizing 3D printing in their projects to cut on costs. It's clear SpaceX paved the way for a new wave of launch providers. And it wasn't easy to stand up against these huge legacy companies as Musk did, but now there's a changing of the guard. However, the big three legacy companies aren't going anywhere. There are still many areas that they can compete. Things like lunar landers, space probes, satellites, and crewed and cargo spacecraft. I mean, Boeing just received a $300 million contract to develop jam-resistant communication satellites. So we will still indeed see these legacy companies in other space areas, but as far as launch services, in my opinion, it's out with the old. Let me know your opinion in the comments. Alright, that's all I have for now. I hope you enjoyed your journey. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I am Neil Scribe, and I'll see you on the next journey.